This training event is supported with federal funds as appropriated to the Florida Department of Education, Division of Career and Adult Education for the provision of state leadership professional development activities. For more information, go to www.floridaipday.org. I'm so glad that you all could join me today. I am Anna Schubarth, the Academic Program Administrator for the Florida Department of Corrections, here to talk about integrating Compass 100 into your reading and language lessons. First, we have some housekeeping for IP Day. If you have a question, please type it into the Q&A option. All of your microphones will be muted. You'll be in listen-only mode. The presentation is being recorded. It will be archived and available on the IP Day website within 48 hours. I encourage you to share that with anyone who can't join us today. In this session, we're going to explore the academic education plans, the Compass 100 Traveler's Map, how to create a crosswalk, some strategies for implementing Compass 100 into reading and language. I'm going to give you some sample lessons, some activities, and then we'll talk about some resources that are available to you. First, we're going to take a look at the frameworks, and you should recognize this from your ABE Academic Education Plan. Looking over the standards and the benchmarks for each level, we can see that there are extensive similarities between benchmarks at levels 1, at levels 2, 3, and 4, and between the ABE standards and GED standards. Does this mean that level 1s are going to produce the same product as level 4s? No. But it does mean that the same type of lesson can be differentiated for all levels of learners to meet them at their level and to challenge them to produce the best product that they can. These standards are all about gathering information, sorting it, making sure it's valid, organizing it into a logical order, and using that information to support a written decision, then editing that writing for clarity and usage. Hold that thought. Let's look at the GED academic education plans for reading and language and see what they have to say. So for GED, reading and language arts and reading, it's comprehend, summarize, make inferences, evidence-based generalizations, drawing conclusions. So evidence gathering, making conclusions, evaluating evidence, logical organization, that sounds pretty familiar. And the reading and language arts, editing, correcting errors in usage, writing with standard English conventions. So writing clearly, editing for usage and clarity, again, sounds pretty familiar. And the writing standards. So organizing details, making decisions based on evidence, writing out the decision. So as we see, the ABE standards and the GED standards for reading, writing, and language arts all follow the same pattern. They have the same overarching goals: to gather information from multiple sources, evaluate that evidence, organize that evidence, use the evidence to support a decision, write out that decision clearly using standard English conventions, edit it for clarity and usage, and end up with a useful and meaningful product. So now let's take a look at our traveler's map for Compass 100 and see what it has to say about these topics. Looking at Module 1, you're looking at lots of inventories where you're gathering information about interests, skills, and needs. For Module 2, you're researching into careers, including some comparison and contrast. You're gathering data, evaluating data, making decisions. In Module 3, you're turning that gathered data into something useful. You're writing conclusions based on the research that you've completed. In Module 4, you're organizing the data, placing it into a logical order. And in Module 5, you're understanding your self-motivation and challenges. Module 6 gives you the skills for success. So, when you're looking at the frameworks and at Compass 100, I'm seeing nothing but similarities. Both of them are virtually identical. You gather information, evaluate it, research, organize the information, use that evidence to support a decision or to write a useful document, edit for clarity and usage, and make something meaningful in Compass 100. That meaningful creation or that meaningful product is your readiness portfolio. But how on earth do you teach this in order to meet both the frameworks and the Compass 100 requirements? How do you bridge that crosswalk in between the two? Well, first you have to pick a direction. Just like Compass is all about guiding your path, forming a crosswalk follows the same sort of thing. There are 3 different options that you have when you're picking your direction. You can either start with the standards and go to the map to figure out what part of the map matches the standard you're about to teach. Or you can start with the map and go to the standards and see which standards match what you're trying to do on the map. Or, in my favorite color, for no particular reason, you can look at the big picture, the product. What is the big idea we're working on? We're trying to produce a quality readiness portfolio for Compass 100, and we're trying to make sure our students can understand what they read, pick out what is important, organize it, write down a conclusion that is formatted logically using standard English, be able to edit that document, and have it be useful and meaningful. How often have we as educators been told we must make our lessons relevant? Make the problems real-world problems in order to connect with our students and get buy-in and meaningful, measurable results. What is a bigger real-world problem than survival? What do we need in order to survive? Food, clothing, shelter? How do we get that? Exchanging money for it. How do we get the money? We have to work. How do we get work? By learning the skills that make you hireable and being able to explain those skills clearly and effectively. And what common documents do we use for this? A resume, a cover letter, requests for references, budgeting. What do we do all of this for? To meet our future goals. So in both our standards and Compass 100 are real-world problem-solving skills. Which brings us to the first lesson that I've prepared, or that I'm offering to you today. What I've done is made unit lesson plans. So there'll be several lessons within the unit that end up meeting different categories of standards and modules within Compass 100. So the standards that we're looking at today are quite a few. I'm not going to read through them all, but they do cover ABE, writing, language arts, reading, GED, reading and writing, and it covers the traveler's maps, modules 1 and 2. All you need for this is the Occupational Outlook Handbook, Compass 100 inventories, paper, and a pencil. These are all things that were supplied to the sites. You should have all of these things. You have Occupational Outlook Handbooks. You definitely have Compass 100 inventories, and if you're running low, you know to contact Mr. Richardson. Pencil and paper should be readily available. Our objective is to gather and evaluate information, which is the first step. So for the first lesson in this unit, we're going to gather up the information. You do that by conducting the surveys with the students, complete those inventories. That may take several sessions. That's okay. It's better to spread it out than to have the students burn out with an inventory overload. Make sure the student understands that the results of each inventory relate to them as they complete it. Have them take notes on what they're discovering about themselves. For the next lesson, they're going to evaluate their inventory results and decide if the results are an accurate reflection of their wants, needs, and interests. If not, the students have to explore why there's a difference. Were they honest when they were taking the inventories? Do they have a wide variety of interests that can't be accurately captured by inventories? Students use the inventory information, adjusted if necessary, to choose 2 or 3 different careers that meet their interests. Using that Occupational Outlook handbook, they can then research each of those choices and write down the important facts about each one. Students should decide what's important about the careers. If they need suggestions, guide them towards salary, prospects for growth, availability in the region, that sort of thing. And for the last lesson in the sample unit, students will write a comparison contrast of the careers they chose with a summary that identifies which one they would prefer to have. If you'll note, this covers identifying a need, researching the things that will meet that need, and then writing a response to the need. That's where it's covering all of those standards, and it's covering the things that you have to have for modules 1 and 2. After the last lesson there is completed, you'll have finished both modules 1 and 2. You'll have everything that you needed to do for those 2 modules from 3 lessons, 1 unit, over maybe 3 weeks. And the students don't even need to know that they're doing Compass 100. They're just conducting real-world research into something relevant to their interests and beneficial for their future. I have developed a second sample unit about writing effective employment documents. So let's look at the documents that need to be created for Compass 100, Module 3. You need a resume, a cover letter, reference requests, a letter explaining criminal history. Those are the big 4. Looking at the frameworks, these documents meet requirements for ABE 2, 3, 4, and 5 for writing, and 9. For language arts 1 through 6, reading 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, GED, reading 1, A through E, G, and H, reading 3, 1 and 2, reading 4, 3, language 4.1 through 3. So it goes on and on. It meets a whole host of these standard requirements. And it'll also meet Module 3 of the Traveler's Map. All you need for this are the full-size masters for the cover letter and for the resume, because the cover letter template is also used for the reference request and the criminal history letter. So you need these 2 templates, and they'll need to be able to write things down, pencil and paper again. Have the students think about what they learned about themselves and the career they chose in the last unit. So for lesson 1 in this unit, draft a cover letter, review it, edit it, write the final draft. Lesson 2, draft a letter requesting a reference or recommendation. Again, review, edit, write a final draft. Lesson 3, a letter explaining criminal history. Review and edit it, write a final draft. Lesson 4, do the same thing with the resume. They're already used to using the formats for the letter template. Now they get to try a different template. Use the resume one. Edit it, final draft. Once you have those final drafts, you're over halfway there in all the documents that you need for their readiness portfolio. And this unit gives them so much practice for professional writing based on prior research and knowledge, organization of thoughts, use of standard English conventions, and developing polished final drafts. Time should be taken to explain the purpose of each document, options for style and content, and the revision and editing process. It's also a good opportunity to let students practice their editing skills by swapping letters and editing each other's, and then returning them, doing the final draft from that. I remember when I was in freshman comp, our teacher used to have us do that. We would have to do a local edit and a global edit. The first thing was a global edit, and we'd swap with someone else in the class, and they would determine whether what we had written covered the points that it needed to cover. Then you would do a local edit where you swapped with someone different in the class, and they decided whether or not you met all of the standard English conventions. Were your commas correct? Was your capitalization correct? Did you use AND instead of AN? All of these things help drive home the importance of this for the students. So once those 4 lessons are complete, the students will have met the very long list of standards and the requirements for Module 3. So the more interactive you can make your lessons, the less they'll seem like work. So here are some suggestions for incorporating some activity into what could be a long day or several long days of sitting and writing. How do you make it engaging? Think about ways to turn it into a game or a slight competition. Chart progress for your class, or get the whole class to participate in writing one document. This works really well when you're covering things like cover letters or even the letter of criminal history. The whole class can come up with ideas on how to phrase things in those documents, and that helps the ones that are struggling to come up with some good ideas. Also, incorporating movement into your classroom helps as much. Mr. Richardson is making faces at me and dancing. So we're going to forgive me for my stutter there. So incorporating movement into your classroom helps to engage kinesthetic learners as well as keeping the blood pumping and the brains going. So if you'll take the different kinds of options that inventories can result in, post those around the room, and then the students have to go and find the one that matches. Find out who else in the class has the same traits and skills. Find out who else matched that type of career. So there are all sorts of options for incorporating movement, making things challenging, making a game. You can also bring it back to the present or the now. Who do they work for while they're inside? How would they ask for a reference? What kind of skills are they using in their job that they're doing right now? They have skills that they're developing by coming to school every day, if they're coming to school every day. They have skills that they're developing by working inside grounds when they get called out, or as a houseman or in food service. All of these things are building skills that can be used on resumes. So we just have to get them to think about it in a slightly different way than they're used to. When you're dealing with teaching soft skills, exaggeration is the key. Don't just require that students call you sir or ma'am or do the polite honorifics with staff. Have them do it with each other. Let them get engaged with it. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Mr. So-and-so. It works. They get a kick out of doing things like that. So it just depends on how it's phrased to them. But the more they see other people using that type of language with each other, the more it becomes normal for them. You can also do sticker or star charts. We can't give stickers or things like that to the inmates, but you can do a chart that gives them points for demonstrating their soft skills. If you catch them being helpful or attentive or productive, catch them being polite. And then as a reward, they can earn their preferred seating for a period of time. It doesn't take a physical reward. They don't have to earn a pencil or earn time off from school. Something as simple as letting them pick where they sit can often be a great motivator. I'm not seeing any questions yet, so we will continue on with discussing different things about Compass 100 and how to integrate it into your class. My slide is going to say thank you on it, but I'd like to go ahead and take this time to talk about how Compass 100 meets the requirements that are set forth in the standards that DOE has provided for us. Not just the college and career readiness standards. As Mr. Richardson showed you in part 1, and I've tried to show you today, the standards that you have encompass so many different areas that can be adapted to cover Compass 100. I did just get a question asking if you're automatically muted. Yes, all of the lines are automatically muted. Any questions need to be done through the question and answer box that you can find at the edge of your screen. So when you're looking through your AEPs that have all of your standards listed, you can match those to the different parts of the traveler's map. And like I was saying earlier, you can go either direction. You can look at the map and try to find standards. You can look at the standards and match it to the map. The more familiar you become with the traveler's map and with your standards, the easier it becomes to do a crosswalk. And the easier it is to develop lessons that meet a wide range of needs. Anyone that's asking questions, there you go. There's one coming up into the question and answer. I know there's a chat box as well, but please put your questions into the question and answer box. So will the PowerPoint be available for printing? You will be able to get the PowerPoint. It'll be posted on IPDA's website with the recording of this webinar. So you'll be able to get it from there. If for some reason you can't get it to download for printing, then by all means, send me an email and I'll get it to you as well. But the presentation will be available for download. How to document Compass completions and create a portfolio in live. So in live is in conjunction with your academic or your CTE course. You document Compass completions the same way it's done in hybrid when they're complete with what the items that they have done in the modules on those traveler's maps. Let me pull back up a traveler's map real quick and we'll jump to that and see if we can't give you a little bit of a heads up there. So we were talking about creating documents for the job search and for application processes when we were talking about drafting the resume. So once they have completed doing the documents that they need that are listed on that Module 3 section, you would sign off on the traveler's map that they have done that. You would also sign off on your AEP on all of the standards that they met while they were going through that process and creating those documents. So it meets both things. You create the portfolio by using the full-size masters that have been provided in order to gather those documents together. They just do their final versions after they've done their editing and draft versions on the final full-size master. Yes, completions do get submitted to classification, just like with hybrid. All of it works exactly the same. If you are in academic education and you're completing Compass 100 Live there, you would enter all of your hours that it requires the same way that they do for hybrid. When the section is done, they get the hours that are listed for that section. You put that on your DC-5 149, send it to classification at the end of the month. The hours are documented. Send completions when they finish the entire 6 modules. Send that to classification. Let them know that they've completed. So that gets marked onto the screens as well. And whoever enters the certificates at your site will do so on the DC-34 screen. So a question from a tutor: what's the difference between live and hybrid? Live is the way Compass 100 meets the college and career readiness standards and helps meet the other standards that we're required to follow by the Department of Education in conjunction with an academic enrollment or a CTE enrollment. Hybrid is Compass 100 that is done standalone, still by an instructor. There is no self-study, but hybrid is done when someone is nearing release if they have not completed the live version within the past 18 months. So if they don't complete it within 18 months of release, they'll have to go through hybrid in order to finish. If they have finished live prior to their 18 months of release, they will only have to go to a minimum of 2 sessions with the hybrid instructor in order to update their portfolio documents and make sure that they're as current as they can be. The full-size masters are on public folders. If you need them and can't get to them, send an email to Mr. Richardson and he'll make sure that you get a copy. Classification does know how it works for the data entry. They are aware that there will be multiple entries for live if a student goes through academic and CTE classes. They'll have a live entry for both academic and CTE, and potentially an additional entry for hybrid, depending on the time frame. So classification is aware. Classification is also aware that they will be receiving portfolio documents for each individual that goes through Compass 100. Now keep in mind, when you go through academic Compass 100 and you give those portfolio documents to classification, and then your student goes to CTE and they develop portfolio documents for classification, those are the newest set of documents for that student. So those will supplant the ones that are already there in that folder in classification. If they then go through hybrid, those documents will either be updated or replaced by the newest version. So the student will have the most up-to-date version of their portfolio when they leave us. The next question is, what if a student is enrolled in live, then gets enrolled in hybrid due to nearing his EOS date? Should the student be removed from live, and if so, how? No, the student does not get removed from live if, because they are nearing their release date, they get enrolled in hybrid, because live is a separate program. Live is fulfilling components of your curriculum frameworks, and you'll still need to document that they're completing those components while they're enrolled in class. Now, if a student is unenrolled from class, then they would not be enrolled in live anymore. And again, if someone does get enrolled in hybrid while they're enrolled in live, that requires a little bit of communication between the academic instructor or CT instructor and whoever's instructing the hybrid class to make sure that everyone has all of the data of the things that the student has completed, so we're not double dipping. I have another question. Can you tell where to locate the Compass 100 Hybrid and Compass 100 Live checklist folders? Where are they in the folders? Could not find it. Mr. Richardson has indicated that he would be more than happy to take care of answering that question offline. They are in there, and he'll be able to direct you to that if you can't find them. If hybrid is completed first, is it still necessary to complete Compass Live? Yes, Compass Live is a separate program that is required for any academic and CTE enrollment. So regardless of whether they have completed hybrid first or they are going to complete hybrid after, regardless of whether your enrollee in academic or CTE courses is releasing in 6 months, 6 years, or never, they still need to complete the Compass Live that goes along with their course. Okay, let's see if we have anything else here. Can both be CMP'd at the same time? So CMP for the hybrid and the live, they would CMP at the same time if they're dual enrolled. If you look at it as a dual enroll situation, because the requirements would be completed jointly for the two. So unless there was something specific that one wasn't covering and the other was, or there was an agreement between the hybrid instructor and the academic instructor that certain parts are going to be finished by one or the other of them, but still the entire course would not be completed until everything was done, so all 6 modules. Is this all in procedure? You'll be happy to know that the procedures have all been rewritten relating to academics, and yes, everything is in procedure. If the new procedure hasn't posted yet, the one that is up there currently does still cover everything except the one point where if they have completed live within the past 18 months or within 18 months of release, all they have to do is update their documentation with hybrid. That's the only thing that is not outlined in procedure, and it was outlined in a memo. Okay, I have some more questions coming up, which is wonderful. Keep them coming. Does this mean that the student's earning 200 hours if they're earned in both? No, you earn hours for the first time through. They can still be documented on there, but the hours are, for academic, the hours are both toward the statute and toward class. So you're looking at completing standards when they're in live, but the hours also count. When they go through hybrid, then those hours are the ones that are specifically aligned to just statute. So they could have more hours showing up, and that's not a problem. Repetition is never a problem. Plus, you're not doing the same thing each time. As you do Compass in an academic class, your documents are going to be rather general. Yes, they'll be specific toward the interests of the student, but the documents are not going to be as specific as, say, if you're going through a CTE course. If you're going through a CTE course in, say, plumbing, your resume and your cover letter are going to be geared toward the plumbing trade. What would I need to say in order to get a job using the skills that I have now? When they're going through an academic class, their cover letter will be a little more general. How do I get a job based on what skills I have, but not for a specific trade necessarily, unless they have prior knowledge of a specific trade. And when you go through hybrid, you're looking with an eye to, I'm releasing very soon. What do I need to put on these in order to get a job as fast as I can, honestly, and be able to stay out of prison? So although the name is the same and the content covers the same types of skills, the delivery is vastly different between academic live, CTE live, and hybrid. And it looks like I have made it through all of the questions that have been asked so far. So I want to touch base just a little bit more with the lessons that we covered. And the last question is, just to verify, Compass Live must be completed before release. Compass 100 must be completed before release. Compass Live is completed in conjunction with an academic or a CTE class. So it's not that Compass Live is required before release. Compass 100 is required before release. That can be in the live format if it's within 18 months of release, or it can be in the hybrid format. All of them work. So I'm going to flip through my PowerPoint real quick and get back to the activities that we were talking about and about how to keep people engaged in your lessons, because we know that that's one of the biggest things that we have issues with, is keeping the level of engagement and the level of interest. And things that work for your class may not work as well for even the class down the hall or across the hall. It may not work the same in an ITA class as it is for an ASE class or a CTE class. But however your class functions, you can find something that works for you and works for your student. I have a question asking about, is there a way to assign entry codes? No, there's not. And there's not for a reason. All of the Compass academic, the Compass 100 academic and CTE are considered COMPASL, which is Compass Live. The hybrid is COMPASH for Compass Hybrid. That's the only differentiation between the codes. To know whether it's the Compass Live has been done in conjunction with academic or CTE, you look at your entry and exit dates. They should align with entry dates for an academic class or a CTE class. That's how you know which class did what. So, if making charts to follow progress or making star charts for points isn't going to work for your class because perhaps they're one of the classes that decides that stickers are silly, there's always a way to get them into competition with one another, a gentle, casual, polite competition, not an aggressive, angry competition, where they can take something that they need to complete for anything in class. I disagree with the question that is up now that says pedagogy doesn't work with adults. It's all in how you phrase it. Everything works with adults. So everything works with adults, everything works with children. It's just all in the phrasing and how you work through it. So where I was where I was headed with the different ideas for engagement, if you cannot come up with something that works with stickers or with points and something that gives them like preferred seating, if that doesn't work for your class, there will be something that does. Competition in math. Sometimes it takes knowing that they can do something faster than everybody else in their class, or knowing that they can do a job that has no punctuation errors, striving toward a particular goal. It comes back to developing SMART goals, having each student have their specific goals that they need to meet. But the ultimate goal for all of our students should be success upon release. It should be having the skills when they release to not have to come back. That's what we're striving for with our academics, with our CTE, and with our Compass 100. Everything works together in order to make sure that our students and every inmate has the best opportunity possible to succeed once they exit the gates. And if they're not going to exit the gates, to make sure that they have every opportunity possible to still have a fulfilling life. So I would like to thank you for joining me today, and to IPDAY for this forum and all of their assistance and wonderful trainings that they provide to us throughout the year. I'd like to thank Mr. Richardson, the Compass 100 and all sorts of other things coordinator, the Compass 100 development team, and every one of you, because all of your suggestions get incorporated back into Compass as we can, and it only serves to make it better. Now, IPDAY has posted some feedback questions. Please answer all 3 of those questions so that they can do their assessment of this presentation. And remember that the IPDAY is recording the presentation, has part 1 already available. If you missed it or want to review it, just go to floridaipday.org. This one will be posted within 48 hours. If you have any more questions, now's the time. I have a question saying you're not able to click the hyperlink to the PowerPoint, and would I be able to email that link? Miss Drew, I will do what I can to get that to you. But this one will be available in 48 hours on IP Day as well. So if you don't hear from me within 48 hours, do try there again. So thank you for answering the questions that were presented. And FloridaIPDay.org, their quote, "The best professional development's ongoing, experiential, collaborative, and connected to and derived from working with students." That's what we're trying to do here. IPDay is always here to assist, and we do definitely thank them for their assistance in helping us bring these presentations to you. Have a wonderful day. I got you.